Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to this special live chat we got going on the official Red Bull X-Alps channel. My name is Tarquin Cooper, and I'm going to be talking to two of the greatest athletes this race has ever produced. That's Gavin McClurg and Tom de Dorlado, who will be joining us in a minute. But first up, we've got some very exciting news to share, and that is that the start gun on the 2021 Red Bull X-Alps has officially fired. Applications are now open. So if you've ever fancied your chances at the world's toughest adventure race, you have now until the end of August to get your application form in. So we welcome applications from all over the world, and to date we've had athletes from as far away as Japan, Korea, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, all across South America, Colombia, Argentina, and of course from some European countries as well. So we welcome applications all over the world, men and women. It's one of the few races where both sexes get to compete on a level playing field. And then applications close on the August the 31st, and then the race committee spend the next 6 weeks poring over all these applications, and they will choose only the very best athletes to compete in the next race. And that is announced in October, middle of October, October 14th. So that will be a really exciting announcement to see who will be on the lineup of next year's race. And then the next big milestone will be in March. That's when the route is revealed. But I do have a little secret top tip for you, that if you go onto the website, scroll down to the bottom and have a look at the sponsors, underneath Saliva, you will see a couple of sponsors who might give an indication of where a couple of turn points might be in 2021. And then the race starts itself. The prologue kicks off on June the 17th, another June start. So exciting times, and to chat about next year's race, chat about last year's race. We're exactly a year between the two. We've got lined up Gavin and Tom, and let's see if we can find Gavin. Gavin needs no introduction. He's done the race 3 times, first American to reach Monaco back in 2015. So let's have a look, see if we can find Gavin. Here he is. Just waiting for Gavin to come up. Hey, Gavin.
Hey, my man. How's it going?
Good. So where are you in the world?
I am in southern Texas chasing a world record. We've been down here for a couple weeks. I'm actually with Cody Matank, who was in the race last year as well, and a few others. And yeah, we're trying to go big.
Fantastic. So Gavin, I've just got one question for you. And I know that in the past, shortly after the race, you said, you weren't sure about doing it again. And even recently, listening to your last podcast, you were like, not sure. What are you thinking? Are you going to sign up?
I'm in. We're going to do it again.
Oh,
Team is really psyched. You're right. This one, I've been more on the fence than the others. I'll be 49 next year for this race, so I'm definitely feeling it. But yeah, I can't imagine watching this thing from the sidelines. So yeah, we're going to do it again.
that will make a lot of fans happy to know that you're taking part again. So we're a year, we're exactly a year between events. So how does the perspective change? Because immediately after the race, I assume you're probably thinking, oh man, I'm so exhausted. It's the last thing you feel like doing. And then how long is it before you think, wow, that was the best fun I've ever had. Sign me up for the next time.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a while for sure. Even Kriegel, when I interviewed him in the podcast, he talks about in 2009 and 2011, you kind of go into this dark place because it's so much. It's not just the race, it's the anticipation and the training and working with your team and getting over to Europe, at least for us. And then you have this incredible experience where, your team's cooking for you and taking care of you, and the team is so important, but it's like going to war with these guys. It's such a cool experience. Not that going to war is a cool experience, but the X-Alps is. And like you said, it is just an incredible adventure. And then it just ends. It just stops. And I have found in all 3 races, I have found it really tough. And then slowly you get back to normal life. And eventually this thing it just gets a grip on you, and it's the most fun I know how to have. So yeah, that starts coming back around Christmas. You start thinking, gosh, maybe it'd be fun to do this again, and keeping the training going. And yeah, and then by spring, it's like, okay, we got to do this.
And what have you been up to for the last year?
I've been flying a lot. I've been spending a lot of time with my family, and like right now, we're in the trailer right behind me, and they're not with me for these few weeks down in Texas. But we moved out of the house for the next 3 months, and we're going to just be doing a little bit of traveling, and I'll be trying to do a lot of flying with them and training. And I did actually a lot of comps this last year. I did 5 or 6 competitions, and so yeah, you're always kind of just looking ahead and trying to get better and trying to be ready for
And
the next one.
what's this world record you're going for?
This is the longest distance flown. So straight one-way distance. Right now it's 588 kilometers down in Brazil. They've had it. Will Gadd broke it here in Texas back in 2001, I believe. And then the Brazilians got it in 2007. And actually Neville Hewitt got it in South Africa. And then the Brazilians got it in 2007. And then they keep going bigger. And the last year, the boys down there broke it at 588, and so we're trying to go bigger. There hasn't been many encampments in Texas. Dustin Martin broke it here in 2012 in a hang glider. He went 700 and something, and but the reason there's not many encampments in Texas is it's tough. It's tough work. It's scary. There's not a lot of places to land. It's gnarly. So yeah, we're not having great weather, but the next few days look pretty good. So we'll see.
Well, good luck with that. So to talk about the application phase, there are going to be a lot of young athletes coming through, really champing at the bit, wanting to take part. What would your advice be to them?
Yeah, I would advise them, right now, if you don't feel very ready, then you might want to wait. You'll be surprised how fast it goes, the time between now and the race. We've got a year. You don't find out if you've made it in until October. By October, the engine really needs to be running. You need to be already well into training, because at that point, you're only going to have about 9 months. And you need your team. I think a lot of people underestimate how important the team is. So I would say right now, you need to have really a good idea of who your team is, and they need to be as psyched or as more psyched as you are, because there's a lot that goes into it. So I would say, a great way to prepare for the X-Alps is to do other hike and fly races. So, there's so many these days, the Verco Fly and the Eiger Tour, which is starting up here in a few days, Borns to Fly, there's a bunch of them. And so the more of those you can do, the better. That also helps with your application process. But I would say, make sure that you feel ready, because you don't have a lot of time in a year to be more ready in terms of just your flying skills and your ability to be safe in the mountains. And that's what I think the selection process really looks at, and the group that looks at the selection process really looks at, is this person going to be safe in the mountains? Not just from the flying aspects, but they can move in the mountains, they know how to deal with mountains, they know how to navigate, the team knows how to support them. That's very important.
That's kind of what I was coming to. I mean, imagine if you were selecting athletes, what would be the skills and the skills, the experience that you would look for someone taking part in this race? Because, it is really, it's not just a flying race. It's not about just being able to fly 200-kilometer triangles, is it? You've got to have a certain skill set. So what would you look for?
Yeah, making safe decisions in the mountains, whether that's, if you're a mountain guide or you know how to work on ropes, glacier travel, mountaineering experience, climbing experience. And, I think what really weighs on them pretty heavily is if you've done any kind of vol-biv expeditions, because then you're really separated from the mothership in terms of getting weather reports and all that kind of thing. And that's how it is in the X-Alps to an extent. I mean, you've got your team that's sending you weather, but they want to know that you can make good decisions under stressful situations. You're going to be tired. There's a massive lack of sleep that accumulates over the 12 days. And so they want to, like Antoine Girard, his big expeditions in the mountains, they know that he's going to be making pretty good decisions in that kind of terrain. So the more experience you have in the mountains, and I think the flying is not as big a piece of that as the rest of it. You know, with the flying, of course, to do well in the race always goes to the best pilot, and that's been Kriegel 6 times. And so to do well in the race, you have to have the top landing skills and a lot of the stuff that makes the race faster, but that's not, you don't necessarily have to have those skills to be safe in the race. You know, to be safe in the race, you can always go down and land in the valley, but you need to know how to deal with things like really violent valley winds, and like we had in last year's race, incredible snow levels, and, you know, using an ice axe and crampons and that kind of thing. So yeah, you need to have good mountain skills, just general mountain skills.
Yeah. One of the stories listening to your podcast on your mountain a Cloud-Based Mayhem series was listening to Eduardo Garza talk about being caught in a gust front. And of course, at the time, you're sort of vaguely aware that he had a little bit of a interesting experience, but it's only listening to him afterwards, talking to you, just sharing just how terrifying that was, you know, flying at, I think, 100 kilometers an hour, watching the trees bending underneath him. So yeah.
That's a really interesting thing too about, I mean, I think one of the reasons I keep coming back to it, and Tom will be able to chip in, I think this would, if he's doing it again, that'd be like his 8th. But, you know, every race is a lot different. And so, you know, your skill level has to be really well-rounded. You know, in 2015, we were dealing with a ton of headwind, and it put a lot of the athletes out of the race. You know, so you're constantly dealing with a lot of lee and a lot of rotor. You know, in this last race in 2019, most of us didn't deal with any wind, not the whole race. You know, there were the exceptions. Cody dealt with a bunch of wind in a gust front. Eduardo did in a gust front. And that's the thing. In the race, you know, you really have to push it to the very kind of limit. And so you need to know how you deal with fear, and you need to know that, you know, you can still make good decisions in those kind of conditions, because it's pretty hard to do well in the race if you don't really kind of push that envelope a little bit. You don't want to push it too much, of course, because the race isn't worth getting hurt or getting killed, obviously. But yeah, I mean, every race really throws a whole new set of stuff. I mean, really, for me, the hardest circumstance we've had in any of the races was the stability in last year's race in those last 3 days. I mean, I don't deal with heat that much. It was insanely hot. It was so stable. I don't think I heard my Vario beep in like 3 days. You know, it's that kind of thing. That's brutal.
Yeah. So last question, Gavin, what's more important, youth or experience?
I've always said experience, even in the beginning, although, you know, I believe I'm right about this. In 2015, second place was Huber, who was a rookie. In 2017, it was Benoit, who was a rookie. And, you know, so the rookies have been doing pretty well. So, you know, certainly the race, one thing that's totally true that we know is that it keeps getting faster every edition. You know, the teams are better, the athletes are better. There's more athletes in that 32 selection who are really, really, really insanely fit. You know, there's no doubt that the young guys can pound it hard on the ground. You know, I used to say that most of them, you know, would start kind of falling apart like day 5, day 6, because they were just going too hard. But these days, it seems like they can just maintain that forever. You know, Maxime Pinot, rookie, again, last year, just crushed. So, yeah, I gotta try. It's super motivating for me, because it just means I need to train even harder. Just train really, really, really hard to be able to keep up with these guys.
Well, good luck with that. Good luck with all your training in the coming months. Yeah, it'll be fantastic to see you next year if you're selected, of course. It's not a
exactly. I might not.
Yeah, you still gotta, you know. But no, I'm sure you will. So cheers, Gavin. Thanks a lot. Great to talk to you. So guys, just to wrap up, if you missed any of that broadcast, don't worry, it'll be online shortly on the channel and you'll be able to watch it from the beginning. Apologies again for the sound quality was a little bit off with Tom in places, but we could just about make him out. So anyway, fantastic to speak to both those guys, Gavin and Tom. Thanks so much, and it's great news that they're both going to be applying again this year for next year's race. So all that's left for me to say is make sure you sign up to all our channels, follow us on our social accounts, subscribe to the YouTube channel to make sure you don't miss any further updates or announcements. And just to recap, applications are now open. The start gun of the 2021 Red Bull X-Alps has fired. Bring it on. Thanks for watching.